Hello and welcome back to IrishRacing.com's Jump to It show, where this weekend we are previewing the big racing from Ascot and York. Of course, the intriguing matchup between Westover and Emily Upjohn in the King George we'll get to later in the show. But now we're going to bring in my guests, Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley once again. Now, chaps, what a weekend it was last weekend. Ed, Pisgah Pike, and Stephen as well. I wanted to give my hats off to you for Eddie's boy as well. So Ed, just talk us through Pisgah Pike. Bit of a drifter, wasn't it?
Yeah, cheers, Joe. Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, it was a bit of a funny one, wasn't it? I was on this show saying I thought 10-1 was a decent value for given that the horse had good form at Market Raisin, loved the ground, was on a substantially lower hurdle mark to chase mark, took a violent drift in the market, went out to 22-1. Jamie Snowd interview on the telly saying, I think I've got the horse spot on. Don't pay too much attention to the betting and all that. And I mean, to be fair, he just. Yeah, you could put a line through the price at the end of the day. Everything was right for him. He made a couple of errors at crucial times, yet showed some real guts, I thought, to fend off all the challenges up the home straight. And yeah, so it was for once a drifter went in. Yeah, a 10's out to 22-1. You definitely take it when it happens.
Yeah, happy days. And Stephen as well, the Iceman on the show, I think it's fair to say. How have you been dealing with the heat wave now things have cooled off a little bit?
The Iceman. It's much more pleasant now, Joe, isn't it? It was nudging 40 down south at the start of the week. Much more pleasant now, back to sort of 22. We've got some cracking race. We had a really good weekend on the show, didn't we? Pisgah, we were just talking about this off air. Drifters. I don't think these days, because Betfair have ironed out a lot of punters, it's just algorithms and robots left dominating the market. And whereas, going back 5 or 10 years, you used to be terrified. You sort of knew you'd done your money when these horses went on wild drifts. I'm not so sure it applies these days. You're up against sort of algorithms who might make something 33-1 that you think should be 10-1, and I don't think there's any corruption or skullduggery. It's just opinions basically. So Pisgah Pike, great shout by Ed last week.
Well, hopefully some more big shouts for us for the team this week. So we're going to get straight into it. The first race, we're going to look at the 150 at Ascot. So this is the Princess Margaret Keeneland Stakes for the fillies. Now here, Stephen, you're actually happy to take on the favourite. We've got Frankie Dettori on board the favourite. Tell us why basically you don't fancy the favourite's chances here.
Well, I think Lazou's probably got the best form, but under 2-1 in a race like this. Had quite a hard race at Newmarket the other day. Just got out battled by Morge. That form is the best on offer. But maybe she's had 3 relatively quick races and a hard race last time. I'm going to go for a bigger price one, Breege of John Quinn. She was really impressive at Wetherby first time out. John Quinn wouldn't be known for first time out winners, and she pulled hard and looked green, but she sprinted clear. And Wetherby is a very fast sprint track on quick ground round there. She was then sent to Pontefract, 9-4 on, backed off the boards, and I think Pontefract did for her rather than anything else. She was again a bit too free, and Pontefract is a very stiff track where plenty of horses disappoint, and I'm willing to forgive her that. Now, she is well up in class here, but I remember the speed she showed at Wetherby, and I suspect in this better race she'll settle for the first time, and she could end up being 20-1 on the exchanges. She's 12 with the firms now, so she's got lots to find on ratings, and she's from a northern yard, so I'm expecting her to be a big drifter, but she's one I'll definitely have winning.
And for you, Ed, any interested angle looking at this race?
I'd agree with a lot of what Stephen was saying. Just on balance, I'd probably be against Lazou. She's the best horse in the field, you know that, but she had a proper old dust-up only a fortnight ago. I mean, Frankie Dettori had to get really serious in that contest at Newmarket. Now, I just wonder if that would have left the mark on her. I mean, on those that have achieved official ratings, she is the flag bearer, if you like. She is the standard setter, but a whole host of unexposed types in against her. Royal Charter, Palm Lily, Glen Laurel, all have come out and won one minor race, which in the grand scheme of form doesn't equate to a great deal yet. But look, we know how racing works. They're going to come on a bundle for that. They're improving at rates and knots. And so there's too much guesswork here for me personally in regards to all these unknown quantities to be taking 7-4 about Lazou. Totally respect the fact she's achieved the most to date, but the others haven't had the chance to. So all in all, I'm a bit lukewarm. If I do anything and Lazou was gambled on, I might be tempted to hit the lay button. But generally speaking, I'm going to fence it on this one.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Breege being the pick here from Stephen. Now on to the next race. We're going to look at an interesting one, the Jump Jockeys Nunthorpe here at York, so the 205. Ed, again, this one probably maybe stick a line through in terms of the betting point of view, but quite an interesting one just in terms of having the jumps jockeys on the flat, do you think?
Well, absolutely. This will blow the cobwebs away, won't it? You've been watching some of these 3-mile handicap chases around Worcester and Foss Last. Now, the jump jockeys Nunthorpe, the flying 5 on the Knavesmire, rattling quick ground. Some of these jockeys, would have forgotten what it's like to go this quick, it has to be said. But look, stakes to minimum, in my view. I wouldn't be shocked if last year's winner popped up again with a big run here. Soul Seeker, the David O'Mara team, Sean Bowen booked to ride. You would imagine this has been the target for some time. Won this race last year, as I say, off a couple of pounds lower, or a couple of pounds higher. Basically, handicapped to go well on last year's form. It's around 14-1, tongue time for the first time, and you would have thought this has been the plan since last year, pretty much. So, a few pounds lower than winning 12 months ago. Ground absolutely fine. I wouldn't be shocked if Soul Seeker was primed for a repeat performance.
And Stephen, you're looking elsewhere in the market, I think. You're looking at one for Daryl Jacobs, is that right?
Yeah, similar sentiments to Ed in a way. Indian Sounds is a hard-knocking sprinter. He's fully exposed. He's run a million times. He's fallen the best part of a stone down the weights in the last year or so. And he did catch the eye a bit on a couple of occasions this season at Musselburgh and at Beverley, never really landing a blow. He's usually held up. Daryl Jacob, by the way, interesting stat that he's last week rode a winner at every jumps track. Cartmelly rode a winner at, and he's now completed the full set, which is pretty amazing. I like the way he rides, by the way. He's a patient jockey. Now, it's a 5-furlong sprint to air. You might think that at York, that's complete nonsense. But he'll probably be sitting still, and I suspect these maniacs will be going off a million miles an hour on these sprinters. They'll all be bolting with the old long irons and all the rest of it. And I could just see Daryl Jacob quietly picking a few off late. I mean, to be honest, Joe, it's the biggest no-bet race you'll ever see. A 20-runner sprint handicap with jump jockeys on board and all the usual suspects and terrible terms for punters. But Indian Sounds will be a token selection.
Yeah, great stuff. Again, so the advice there, not to go too heavy on these selections. Although with the form you guys are in, then maybe worth a little bit of a flutter on this one. Anyway, let's move on next to the 225, so the Longines Valiant Stakes. Now here, both of you have got a fancy in this race. Ed, I'll start with you. Give us yours, please.
Yeah, I'd be with Zambak here. I don't think the market's missed her. She's a pretty solid favourite for this now, but she's the unexposed one in here. I mean, Kind Gesture as well, I suppose, is unexposed. But Zambak, I thought, looked pretty smart when she won a minor event on her penultimate start. Then went to Royal Ascot and, look, I mean, she was held up with the ambulance, wasn't she, under Jim Crowley, and had to was hostage to fortune, had to weave her way through 700 horses on that occasion in the Sandringham, and in the end just found one too good, and even in the closing stages, a load of bumper carts, wasn't there? She got knocked about, and I think this would be much more her bag. To be honest with you, I think as long as they go a good gallop, she can be ridden patiently off this smaller field. As I said, on official figures, she's the second best horse in here. November is officially the best, but has to give away a penalty. And I just like the unexposed profile Zambak. I think it's progressing. I think was pretty, I'd say, on the verge of unlucky in the Sandringham last time out. And I think there's a lot more to come here. So yeah, she'll do for me. Jim Crowley and the Roger Varian team, incidentally, who kind of coming into Royal Ascot had gone very cold. It was a bit strange. The Varian team weren't clicking at all, but they've been operating almost a 33% strike rate now for the whole of July. So that pretty much bodes well in regards to stable form as well. Yeah, so Zambak for me.
And Stephen, you're opposed to Zambak in this one. Your nap's actually in this race, so tell us about your nap for this one.
Well, I thought Oscula, who's around about 6-1, was a very big price, particularly on lines through Heredia, who Zambak finished second to at the Royal Meeting. The one thing I say about Zambak, I think Zambak's open to improvement. Variance flying, 9 winners. There have been quite a few, particularly fillies, who've come out of Royal Ascot and run very flat afterwards after a hard race. So that would be a slight concern. I appreciate that she could improve past this lot. I thought the key with Oscula is when she was allowed her head to front run at Sandown, she finished second behind Grand Dame. I thought that was a really good run. She got taken on a long way out on fast ground, kept pulling out more, just got worn down up the hill. And last time out at Chester, I think she was not ridden by, I'm trying to remember who's riding. Maybe it was Nicola Curry was on at Chester. and she was ridden with patience and didn't really settle. I thought she ran an absolute blinder. She just got tired inside the final furlong there. If they revert to front running, obviously Buick's up. I think that's a big plus. Settle in front and quicken. I like front runners at Ascot over a mile. They can take plenty of pegging back, especially on fast ground. And she's 6-1. I mean, she's closely tied in with Heredia on previous form, and she's 3 times the price of the favourite. So I thought she was a sporting nap on a competitive day.
And your memory is spot on there with Nicola Curry being the jockey last time out. All right then, chaps, let's move on to the next race we're going to look at. So that's the 240 at York. Probably another one that's going to be a bit tricky to find any kind of value in. But Ed, take us through your thoughts for this race.
Oh yeah, this is the proper equine Rubik's Cube, isn't it? We've got just the 15 runners due to go to post. So Stephen will be delighted with that in this handicap here. But yeah, look, to be honest with you, I was kind of going around in circles and coming back to the same spot with this one. Lots of old-fashioned sprinters, some that are taking big steps back up in grade, some that have lost their way and have come down the handicap marks. All in all, I'm trying to be enthusiastic here and put something forward, but I generally think there's just a lot of guesswork. I mean, I see it's 6-1 the field in most firms, and that pretty much sums it up. Normally, at least you think there's one kind of younger progressive type coming through, and it was a case of, well, can we get that one beaten? But here, to say 15 man a race, 6-1 the field, I think that sums it up. In my view, you could throw a blanket over half of these. So, yeah, I don't want to be throwing my money away on this York card, and I think there's ample opportunity to.
I mean, yeah, so looking at the previous winners as well, you've got, so all big outsiders basically that have won this previously. Stephen, I guess you're fully on board with that line of thinking, just maybe take it careful on this race. No solid predictions for yourself?
There's difficult races. I mean, if bookmakers could choose races on a Saturday, they'd choose 15 runner sprint handicaps at York, wouldn't they? I mean, it's at least 6-1 the field. If you're going to play, we say it every week, Joe, look for extra places. Some bookmakers will be giving you 4, definitely, and you'll probably get 5 for looking around, which changes things. And if that's the case, I think Aberama Gold will run well. He's a previous course and distance winner. I love Keith Dalglish. I think I've said before, I think he's the best trainer in the North, full stop. He hasn't had such a wonderful season this time around, but he's very, very good, particularly with other people's casts off. And Aberama Gold has been running well in Scotland mostly for the summer, and has finished second the last twice. Sure to run well again. He's completely exposed, and the margins are so fine in these sprint handicaps, Joe. You get a bump out the stalls, you're 50. I mean, it's one of the reasons I prefer the jumps to the flat, generally speaking, is that the margins are not quite so fine over jumps, whereas these sort of races, a slow break and a bit of crowding early, you've got absolutely no chance, getting back into things. But yeah, Aberama Gold, a very token selection.
Yeah. Now I think we kind of had that theme of big fields and difficult to find a winner, but both of you are actually in agreement on this next race. So they're looking at the 3 o'clock, the international stakes at Ascot. So yeah, Ed, take us through your selection in this one, and I think Stephen's going to match it.
Yeah, we're both on fresh here, I believe, for the Fanshawe team. An individual's probably not won as many races as his kind of latent talent entitles him to do so. I think he won from 11 on turf or something like that. But he's been knocking on the door in all these kind of big handicaps and big races. And just basically, the Wokingham, everything that could have gone wrong for him did. I mean, he was really well backed into 4-1 favourite to win the Wokingham. Whereas Rohan got given a stunning ride, one of the rides of the week by Ryan Moore in that encounter. Fresh met all sorts of trouble, more than one occasion. Went to go through a gap, the gap will close, had to switch. Again, inside the final furlong, went to go for a gap, the door shut. All in all, look, as I say, you can be hostage to fortune in those types of races, and the doors will close. And nonetheless, I think it was a pretty good run, especially when you factor in the draw. Everything in the Wokingham was drawn high that did well there. I mean, the winner was in 19. I think it was 29, 30, 31, second, third, and fourth. Everything. It was all the high numbers that dominated the race. Fresh, you got knocked around like a dinghy in a storm. Finished 9th, not beaten all that far, and he was down in stall 7. I think you can upgrade that performance personally. I also think the return to 7 furlongs, I just think he gets a little bit tapped for toe in the early stages over 6, and that's maybe why he meets a bit of trouble. Basically, all in all, I think 7 furlongs here, ground fine, and also I'm making the argument that, well, he was sent off 4-1 to win the Wokingham. I think he's arguably in a slightly weaker race and better treated now, and he's twice the price. So, twice the price in a weaker race over a trip which I see as suiting better. Yeah, I'm pretty keen on his chances, actually, as much as you can be. Again, until the door shuts inside the final furlong, and I'm wincing behind the sofa, Joe. But yeah, generally speaking, I think Fresh is a knocking each way bet here.
And for you, Stephen, I mean, do you follow that line of thinking, or is there any
No,
other points? Yeah.
I totally agree. Ed's nailed that. I mean, Fresh has run 6 times at Ascot. He's won once. He's been in the frame on 4 other occasions in all the top races. And last time out, I mean, he was sent off 4-1 favourite, as Ed said, an incredibly short price. And I think he was a bit unlucky. He was just basically on the wrong part of the track and eventually got switched. It was too late. He never landed a blow. I thought he still shaped well. And his previous efforts were really promising. I think he's pretty bomb-proof around 8-1, especially extra places and things. He's almost bound to run well unless he gets knocked over or suffers some kind of ill fortune. He must go close here. He's got absolutely everything in his favour. And just to touch upon the form of the Wokium, well, Rohan, who won the race under Moore, came out and probably should have won the Hackwood at Newbury last weekend, hit the front, traded long odds on and then stopped. I don't know whether Holly did too much too soon, but he looked like the best horse in that group race, Rohan. Mr. Wagai, who's come over to Ireland and managed to win a really competitive contest in Ireland next time out. And I think the third horse, Jumbly's run a blinder in defeat at Newmarket. So it looks a really strong woke in him. I thought Fresh 8-1. I think that is probably a price I'd take now because I think he could be a public horse. He certainly doesn't get missed too often in the market.
That's really interesting. So confident for a 22-runner field. It's really good to see. So hopefully we've got you another winner there. But let's move on to the last race at York. We're going to talk about. So that's the 3:15, the Skybet York Stakes. Only 5 declared in this one, so quite an interesting one to pick and choose from. But Stephen, you've got a bit of an outsider looking at your selections.
Well, I just think he'll be overpriced. I mean, this could be tactical. It's a very disappointing turnout. He's probably one of the worst Group 2s you'll see for a very long time in many ways. I thought Sabuska, he's run over 50 times. He's won 5 of them. He's been running against Baid at Royal Ascot. And I watched that run back this morning. I don't think he was flattered. He ran really well. I mean, obviously, Baid had them all covered and sluiced up. But Sabuska's basically been running well in defeat. And I watched back his run against Space Blues in this race in 2021, and he got a pretty ordinary ride. He was on the wrong part of the track and out of his ground and ran on strongly. I'm not saying for a minute he's a good thing, but he's probably one of these horses. I see there's 12-1 out there. He'll probably be 20-1 on the exchanges. Definitely one to have winning. I think he's certainly overpriced. He's completely exposed and up against some horses with a bit more upside, but perhaps with a more positive ride, Sabuska will go close here.
And for you, Ed, would you be with the favourite Claymore here?
Oh, I don't know what to think of, to be honest with you. No, I probably wouldn't. I mean, if Dubai Honour is Dubai Honour, I think he wins this quite convincingly. I mean, he's a multiple Group 2 winner, beating half a length in the Champion Stakes. That's the best form on offer. What you got to factor in is he hasn't been seen since disappointing at Meydan back in March. Normally, with the Haggis team, I'm not too worried about a reappearance. He can get them right first time out. I wouldn't be too worried about that. All in all, again, it's just a race I'm picking question marks at all of them about. So, yeah, I wouldn't be a shock if you rolled the dice at something at a bigger price and Sabuska came there with a rattle. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I just think this race, personally, Claymore, I totally get, looks to be improving and unexposed on the up. But I wonder if slightly flattered by beating Reach for the Moon, who did disappoint last time out. Whereas I say, Dubai Honour, beating half a length on Champions Day in a Group 1. If he could repeat that run, that would be good enough to take this. But the operative word being if, Joe. Say, hasn't been seen since March. Who knows? The market will probably guide as to how straight Dubai Honour is on reappearance. So all in all, a bit of a minefield. I'm happy to leave that one to Steve.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's fair assessment. Now, speaking of interesting markets and how the bookies are pricing things up, we want to talk about the next race, the final race that we're going to feature in today's show, the big one of the weekend, the King George, of course. Emily Upjohn against Westover seems to be billed as the clash of the Titans almost. But Ed, take us through the story of this one. And in your view, have the bookies priced it up correctly?
Oh, this is good fun, isn't it? A lot of people are knocking it, saying, "Oh, come on, we've got a Derby third against an Oaks runner-up." And look, I still think on paper this is a pretty classy renewal. Yes, we'd like to have seen Desert Crown there, and I think Adayar was rumoured last year's Derby winner to have been running at one stage. But look, we've got what we got, and I still think this is a really exciting race, chock full of high-class performers who've been doing it around Europe. And I think, yeah, on balance, I think Westover should be favourite. I think he pulverised the field at the Curragh last time out. They didn't see which way he went. You could start saying, oh, well, Piz Badil's perhaps let the form down. But, I mean, come on, Colin Keane didn't need to really go through the gears at all. He was motionless as they went into the latter stages there. If you're going to take the form line strictly through Tuesday, well, then Westover comfortably holds Emily Upjohn, and Emily Upjohn looks an abysmal price, personally, if you're taking that run of Tuesday on face value at the Curragh. Maybe you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, but I think Westover's the improver, the unexposed, the 3-year-old, the classic generation. I do like him. I'd be against Emily Upjohn. Mishriff, in many ways, the unknown quantity, isn't he, Joe? In the fact that he looked as though perhaps his powers are on the wane. Then he's run a stormer in the Eclipse last time out, which now puts him right back in the picture of this. Does he stay at a mile and a half? That would be my only big question mark about him. I thought he looked as though he was coming there to win it in this race 12 months ago, before getting outstayed by the aforementioned Adayar. They were kind of insinuating perhaps they got the tactics wrong and they'll give it another go today. James Doyle takes over. Interested to see. Mishriff is officially the best horse in the field and has to be respected. Pile Driver and Broome, we could go through their chances, but I just don't think they'll be good enough to land this, as much as I respect them. The big joke in the pack, of course, is Torquato Tasso, who won the Arc de Triomphe and is currently a 12-1 shot. I mean, strictly on odds, that's an insulting price for what he managed to achieve that day in Europe, having the Derby winner, an Oaks winner, and a Ledger winner, all that in the washing behind it. However, ground has got to be the worry, hasn't it? I know you showers forecast in the Ascot area, which will help Stephen's petunias, but it's going to have to be a lot more than that to help Torquato Tasso, who every time he's won, he's had the word soft somewhere in the going description. Well, I don't think Good to Firm's going to suit him at all. Originally, connections were saying, oh, yeah, we need to see soft. Well, as the races got closer to the day, they're now saying, oh, we think he'll get away with the ground. And I'd be very sceptical. He's 12-1 because I do think he's just, we don't want to pigeonhole horses all the time. Say a Mudlark's probably unfair, but by far and away, his best form does come when the rains do arrive. And I'm just not sure he's going to get them. Maybe he could prove us all wrong and do it on a rattling quick surface. So, all in all, I think Westover will win. I think Mishriff is the biggest danger.
And Stephen, for you, what's your assessment of the race?
Yeah, it's a prices race, isn't it? I think Westover is the standout form choice. And I think if you're getting 6-4 or bigger, he's probably a bet. Going through them, I think the best outsider is Broome. Purely and simply because I think he'll front run on his own, and Ryan Moore is very good. Now, I know he's got plenty to find on ratings, but he's done it at Ascot, he's done it on fast ground. I can't think of any of the others are going to want to front run. So you're getting Ryan Moore at 16-1, a length and a half clear, dictating his own fractions. And Broome will take a bit of shifting. I think he'll run really well, Broome. He's a very resolute horse who, like all of Aidan O'Brien's, he's probably going to carry on improving run to run. So I do think 16-1 is miles too big. I wouldn't mind being with him in a match bet against the German Arc winner, Torquato Tasso. I don't think he's got an earthly. I just looked at the weather forecast. Might get a shower today, which is Thursday. Friday looks dry, and Saturday looks set fair now as well. So with me, it'll be Good to Firm. It could be quicker. Unless he waters, I can't imagine he's going to put too much on. So I'm thinking good rattling fast ground. I don't think Torquato Tasso will go. He'll be completely outpaced. He's definitely a heavy ground horse. I really don't fancy him. In relation to Broome, I don't think he's got a prayer there. Pile Driver's looking pretty exposed. Comes from a yard that's been struggling. Probably not good enough. I think he's about a 20 chance. I think the horse who's shortened up, Mishriff, who was about 9-2 or 5 earlier in the week, is now around 3 or 7-2. That's too short. He's a classic. He's duping people because he was an unlucky loser of a very messy Eclipse. But I think he's pretty exposed. He's 5. He wears a hood. He's got something of the night about him, as Anne Widdicombe used to say about Michael Howard. And I think that's true. I don't think he's particularly straightforward. He has had a lot of hard races in his career. He didn't impress me with his attitude in this last year. I thought he got out-battled a bit by Adayar rather than outstayed. So I think he's got to rock bottom price there. Westover, thriving, improving. I think he'll sit second to Broome. I will say I think he's a galloper rather than an explosive quickener. He's not a franker with a turn of foot, an explosive, but he's a real relentless stayer. And Keane was brilliant on him in Ireland. He had him in front and driven clear, and he just powered home. Ascot's a lot sharper, so he'll have to be close to the pace. He wouldn't want to be trying to come from last. But I think if they'll turn for home, Broome in front of Westover, I think Westover will probably win. Emily Upjohn, I do have my doubts about the fillies' form. I mean, she was absolutely desperate at Epsom. She should have won. I mean, I think she should have won by 3 or 4 lengths, and I'm sure John Gosden thinks the same. But what that means in relation to this, we'll see. But it's fascinating. I think 6-4 overall Westover is a very fair price, and I'm going to have Broome winning at 16. So, Joe, I think with Broome, you've got to back him before the race. You'll lay him at less than 10 after a furlong, because I think he'll lead on his own, and Moore's excellent when that happens.
Yeah, nice little tactic there for all the punters watching. Obviously, get on as early as you can for the best value in the race. Now, chaps, I think that wraps it up for our previews, but let's just go over your tips for the weekend just to summarise. So, Ed, I'll start with you, please.
Yep, we're going with Westover as my nap. I just think he's going to be too good. As simple as that. And I think he'll win the King George. Sandback, say value now, was obviously 7-2 earlier in the week. The race has cut up a bit, but I think this unexposed filly is the one to side with. After our show, we should probably both be napping fresh, shouldn't we? I think it's fair to say. But I think, as far as 8-1, 9-1 popes go in a 300 runner race at Ascot, I'm pretty confident. I'd probably suggest each way. I'll check your each way terms. I'd be shocked if Fresh, with no in-running shenanigans, couldn't at least feel the each way money there. I think he's knocking each way value. So Fresh for me in that in the big handicap, the Wokingham Part 2, if you want to call it that, at Ascot.
Lovely stuff. Well, thanks a lot for your assessments, Ed, and your tips. But let's go over to Stephen and take us through your selections for the weekend.
Yeah, my betting expert nap goes in the 225. Oscula, George Bowie, he's had 4 winners in the last 14 days. He's going well. I think the key with Oscula is I'm hoping that Buick will front run. I can't see much else leading in the race, and he can quicken away from the front. He just got worn down at Sandown up the final hill, but then ran really well at Chester when he didn't settle. So I think Oscula will take plenty of passing if that's the case. Ed and I agree, which is very dangerous. In the 3 o'clock at Ascot, Fresh, I think, was very unlucky in the Wokingham. That form is absolutely red hot. He's twice the price now. He's 8-1, and with extra places, he looks bomb-proof. And Danny Tudhope is absolutely flying at the minute. He's riding better than he ever has in his whole life. And perhaps the best rag of the weekend, Joe, at York in the 3:15. Sabusco's old, has run 50 times, but he's reliable. And he caught my eye in this race last year. He's a double-figure price. You might get nearly 20 maybe on the exchanges. Have him winning.
Well, word for you as well, Stephen, is reliable. I didn't want to pick on the word old that you mentioned, but we'll go with reliable as the best description. Stephen, Ed, absolute pleasure to have you on board once again for Jump to It. That wraps it up for today's show. So thanks a lot for watching. We'll be back next week with more tips and advice for you ahead of the weekend's racing action.